Let's go to Skype where Benjamin is on the line in California. Hey, Benjamin.
Hey.
Hey.
So I've seen a lot of posts on Facebook, and I've seen this attitude before from the liberty community, and I get where it's coming from, but one of not disdain, but just I guess anger at members of the military, sadness even. But I believe that those feelings are misplaced, at least in most cases, because I think the way members of the military should be looked at is as people who have been defrauded, people who have been lied to their whole lives.
Isn't that sad?
It's incredibly sad.
But you said that people, it's misplaced to feel sad for people who've been defrauded.
I guess, but I think it comes. I guess I misspoke.
Okay,
I think it's anger that they're expressing, but maybe it comes from sadness based on what they're seeing. Not sadness for those people who have been defrauded, but sadness over the result of their being defrauded. You know, people being overseas, innocent people being killed, the wars that are going on. And I think that's the sadness I'm talking about, not the sadness felt at people being defrauded. I think people aren't seeing them as having been defrauded. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about.
My experience with having worked in various jobs with people that were former military is that a lot of the people that join the military do so because they want to go kill people. I used to work with a guy when I worked at a car wash right around the time of the Libya invasion. He said, I want to go re-enlist so I can go kill some Libyans because killing people is fun.
Wow, that's sick. I don't know what the percentages are of those guys, but from what I've heard from people in the military, it's not the majority.
I would think not.
Well, I didn't say majority.
No, I know that. I'm just saying it.
I said my experience is a lot.
But what kind of shunning does that person receive in the military? And I don't know specifically, but I think it's interesting that
people are probably too afraid to shun a psychopath like that.
I don't know.
Yeah. Wake up dead.
But I get where you're coming from, Benjamin. I tend to feel similarly in this particular instance that it doesn't do any good to sort of go after the soldier, as it were. Every one of us who's listening right now has been in that position where they have said, I think this is a good thing, or they were willing to enlist themselves. And so all of us have had this experience. And I think that if people in the liberty community get angry at folks in the military, oftentimes what it is an expression of anger at themselves for sort of being so foolish. I'm using my air quotes there. And that this is oftentimes what human anger is about, is sort of, I've changed my mind. Why the hell haven't you changed yours the same time I changed mine? And that sort of frustration.
Right. I think it comes from a place of, I've come to a conclusion. I've realized things. Why haven't you? And actually, I do think a lot of people who go into the military do eventually come to those conclusions. I know that in my activism, the first people who supported me, some of the strongest supporters I have, are former or current people in the military who are kind of in this place, seeing how the government operates and going, this isn't what I signed up for. I mean, they're kind of trapped now because they've made this their career, but they come to those conclusions and they're like, wait a second. A guy I know who was a Marine. He's the first guy who showed up at some of the protests we did. He got out of the Marines and came to the conclusion, what the heck was all that for? Why was I doing all that stuff? He got in thinking, I'm going to protect people. I'm going to do good. And then after 4 or 6 years or whatever it was, said, well, that's not what I was doing. I was just overseas hurting people, and it wasn't what I had joined up for. So I think, there probably are plenty of sociopaths who get in and just want to go kill people. I think there are a lot of people who get in for, air quotes, the right reasons, wanting to help people, wanting to protect people.
Money for college.
Well, that's a whole separate category of people. But then realize, well, that's not what this is. This is what it is about. But I don't think we should be attacking the soldiers for having been not brainwashed, but brought up this way to believe that.
I tend to agree with where you're coming from. If you want to stand by, we can dig in a little bit further here. 855-450-FREE. That's the SACL CAI toll-free line. Certainly attacking somebody is not a good way to get them to listen. Free Talk Live. We've got Benjamin on the line. We're going to continue with his thoughts here. And he's, by the way, connected to us on Skype via username LRN.FM. Now, Benjamin, what you've been saying to us tonight is that you think it's important for liberty-minded people to not attempt to offend the people that are in the military, because a lot of them could very well be liberty-minded or at least come in our direction in the future. And, you know, making somebody angry is not a very good way to get them to pay attention to you or to care about what it is that you're trying to say to them. And I guess where you're coming from on this is some of the things you've seen online, perhaps on Facebook. And, of course, when it comes to Facebook, it's a bit of a libertarian macho flash haven. It's a place where people, you know, they feel like this is their personal Facebook page and they can post whatever they darn well please. And I think they're right about that. Are you only talking about people and how they behave on Facebook, or are you saying that there are people who you think go out of their way to offend military people in real life?
No, I think it's generally what I see online, not just Facebook, but it's a general sense of I'm liberty-minded and therefore I am anti-war and therefore anti-military and therefore anti-soldier. And I get where all that's coming from. I just find it to be counterproductive. And I think for me, like I hear a lot of people throwing out the cliche, and this isn't from the liberty community, of soldiers are protecting our rights. And, you know,
yep,
I don't
that
believe
today.
that. You know, I don't believe that. But at the same time, I don't think there is harm in recognizing that there are individuals who are willing to put their lives in harm's way, in theory, to protect other people.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that's the case with many people who are in the military. But let me ask you this. It's not that I think this, Benjamin. It's not that I don't disagree with you, but I do want to ask you sort of the devil's advocate questions here. During the Iraq conflict, the numbers out of the State Department through WikiLeaks was something like 9 out of every 10 people killed was a non-combatant. And so therefore, they were killed by people. I'm going to assume those people were likely U.S. soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen, or at least through the consequence of their actions. And if let's just take that number down to 4 out of 5 people, or 5 out of 10, 1 out of 2 people is innocent that's killed in the Iraq conflict. Exactly what am I supposed to thank a soldier for today?
Nothing. You're not supposed to thank them for killing innocent people.
But do you get it? I mean, like,
yeah, no. I completely agree with that. Like I said, I know where these feelings are coming from, but I think for Memorial Day, you know, it's a generalized thing, and I think that you can't pick out specific instances and just go, well, so some soldiers have killed innocent people, and therefore I can't be grateful for everybody. And it's not, for me with Memorial Day, it's not just those who have died. It's just the fact that there are people willing to go be killed. And I know that there's Veterans Day too, but just it reminds me of that there are people willing to put their lives on the line for what I believe are misplaced ideals, but that there's a willingness to do that. I mean, and I'll go even far as this. There are guys who jump on grenades to save the other guys in their platoon. Mm-hmm. They didn't do that because they were in the military for the bennies, and they didn't do that because they were in the military because they're sociopaths out to kill people. That's not why they were the types who were willing to jump on a grenade. You know what I mean? Yep,
sure. There's this guardian type personality, and you can see it in particular government jobs, and I think that it often I have this type of personality. I understand it very well. It's the kind of person that will, you know, they run towards trouble, not away. They intend to protect other people as best they can. They will often take orders very, very well because they think that that's the best way to, at least that's how they've been socialized to believe that that's the best way for them to do that particular type of job. They'll populate jobs like firemen and police officer and military, and oftentimes, that they're male, because males have been taught your life is relatively worthless in the societal unit. So go ahead and do these things for us. Right.
Benjamin, anything else you want to share tonight?
No, just I think we should try to keep things civil. And you can attract more flies with honey than vinegar. That's all.
Yeah, I totally agree with that statement. I think it's a cliche to some extent, but I think it's a good one. However, let me give you an example. So I was carrying a peace flag today. The signage that was surrounding me included "Make Love, Not War," and then there was a James Madison quote about tyranny coming to America. And I don't think that anything that we had today was particularly, there wasn't anyone with a sign saying baby killers or anything like that. There wasn't anything like overtly offensive. But some people are still going to take offense to the fact that there's some people carrying peace flags in a Memorial Day parade. Would it be your suggestion that we should not have gone?
No, I think that's the perfect way to go about it. I guess,
but some would use the same cliche to describe what we did today. They would say, "Oh, well, it's you have to use honey to attract the flies or whatever."
I suppose more what I'm talking about is people who post things like, or say things like, if there were no soldiers, there would be no war, or if all the soldiers just laid down their weapons, there'd be no more war, stuff like that.
That's actually kind of true, because if nobody's fighting, then there is no fight.
Right, and isn't that essentially the message of a peace flag? Is like, hey, stop it. Let's forget all this war stuff.
It's kind of true, but to me, it's very wishful thinking. Yeah, it'd be nice if no one murdered ever again. Okay, that's great, but some people will murder. And it would be nice if there were people willing to defend myself and other people if there are murderers around.
Benjamin, thank you, man. I really appreciate your call, as always, at 855-450-FREE. I guess my point is, I agree with Benjamin that you shouldn't go out of your way to make some sort of statement that is essentially designed to really upset people. If your goal is to bring those people on board with the ideas that you're trying to present.
A lot of people in the liberty community, and I think that this is what it comes down to, are not interested in bringing people on board with their ideas. They are interested in destroying someone else's arguments that were similar to their own at some point in their past, and therefore by destroying this other person's arguments, they may destroy their own history with those arguments or something. And that they, that's what their goal is. Their goal is to defeat another person. In which case they may or may not achieve that goal, but it does nothing for the ideas of liberty.
Yeah, I think your intentions matter to some extent, and what you say is important, but ultimately, on a day like this, when people's emotions are running high and they've got the patriotic music flowing through their veins,
little Lee Greenwood,
and when you encounter people who have this fervor, this patriotic spirit, this nationalistic fervor, when you encounter these people, there's just some of them that no matter how tactful you are, no matter how crafted the message, someone's going to get up in your face with something rude, and they're going to attempt to escalate.
Trying to say that you should die because you don't think that people should kill people. With the whole, if you don't stand behind the troops, stand in front of them. Yeah. Which essentially means that but the person saying it, I believe that if you are anti-war, that you deserve the death penalty for having that viewpoint.
Toll-free number tonight is 855-450-FREE. That's the SACL CAI toll-free line. I guess my point is you can only use so much honey. Eventually, you're going to find somebody who just doesn't care, and they are upset about what you're trying to...
You're allergic to honey.
To portray. All right, so you can take control here. Hour number 2's next.